Daniel Ricciardo has denied that his reported switch to Mercedes as a reserve driver is with the hope of eventually replacing Lewis Hamilton, and has also confirmed that he expects to extend his Mercedes deal beyond the 2023 season. In this video, I bring you the news in detail. Make sure you stick with me to the end of the video so you don't miss any part of the gist. Without any further delay, let's get into it. Daniel Ricciardo makes moves ahead of 2023. Daniel Ricciardo is currently negotiating with F1 teams about a potential reserve driver role. Whilst insisting nothing has been set in stone, whispers are emerging that he is in talks with Mercedes. After a demanding 2-year spell with McLaren, Ricciardo has decided to take a sabbatical next season and prepare for any options that might present themselves in 2024. While he will not be a full-time driver next season, he has clarified that he will still be active in the paddock next season. Ricciardo has made several assurances about this, stressing that he will not stray too far from F1 in 2023. This is a logical decision, considering that he will need to understand the mechanics of the driver market to maximize his chances of a comeback. Focusing on Ricciardo's prospects next season, there are several reasons that he will evaluate joining a team as a reserve driver. Perhaps most importantly, it will allow the Australian to remain connected in the paddock and stay in the loop, which will be crucial as he positions himself for the future. In addition, spending a year as reserve will keep Ricciardo relatively sharp and give him experience with the 2023 cars. This will prove useful if he makes an eventual return in 2024. Mercedes now has a vacancy in its reserve driver role, with Stoffel Vandoorne leaving for Aston Martin. Whilst Ricciardo joining Mercedes is only speculation at this point, the stars seem to be aligning. Ricciardo is frankly overqualified for the reserve driver role, so it seems plausible that Mercedes will be interested in a driver of his caliber and experience to join the team's roster. It would be a stretch to suggest that Ricciardo has a chance of joining Mercedes in 2024, given that Hamilton has already declared his intentions to extend his contract. Frankly, that is neither here nor there for Ricciardo. The 8-time race winner has been cautiously linked to a reserve role with Mercedes, but the significance of this is beyond any long shot of an eventual full-time role with Mercedes. Instead, it is relevant because it emphasizes Daniel Ricciardo's commitment to staying active in the F1 paddocks and maximizing his chances of returning. There is no guarantee Ricciardo will find what he is looking for in 2024, but these developments will surely improve his prospects. Next, let's talk about Ricciardo being warned against taking the Mercedes reserve driver role. Daniel Ricciardo has been told it will be game over if he agrees to become a reserve driver with Mercedes next season. The Australian's future has been up in the air since it was announced he would be leaving McLaren at the end of this season, a year ahead of the expiry of his contract. Ricciardo has been linked with all the vacant seats in F1 since the confirmation of his departure, as well as being the stand-in for Lewis Hamilton and George Russell at Mercedes. F1's 2009 champion Jenson Button, however, feels Ricciardo would be making a serious mistake by taking up such a position. Quote, "Being a third driver for someone of his caliber, it's a very, very strange situation he's found himself in," said Button, speaking on Sky Sports F1. But the results haven't been there this year, so Button said he can completely understand the change of drivers next year at McLaren, and that he doesn't know what he would get out of being a third driver. That's the thing. He's not a young driver, so he can't drive the car next year in race weekends in free practice. It has to be a young driver. He's not really going to get anything out of it. If Ricciardo thought Hamilton would retire from F1 at the end of his current deal with Mercedes, at the end of next season, that would have been quashed this week, as team principal Toto Wolff has confirmed the 7-time F1 champion may be around for another 5 years. Button added that his guess is that he will probably think, well, Lewis might retire and then I'll jump in his seat, but Lewis said he's going to be around for another 5 years, so he's going to be waiting a long time. Button added that it needs to be a team where he thinks he can get a seat for 2024. Otherwise, it's game over because you get forgotten after a year in F1. Could Ricciardo land a role elsewhere? Mercedes F1 facilities would be an attractive option for Ricciardo, giving him optimal equipment to work with and reinstating his confidence. Ricciardo has stated that he won't accept a 2023 F1 seat for the sake of being on the grid, asserting that any deal must sit right with him. Alpine is believed to be on the verge of announcing Pierre Gasly for next year, leaving Haas and Williams as Ricciardo's only other options. However, both teams are far from competing at the front of the field, currently sitting 8th and 10th in the Constructors' Championship, respectively, meaning they may not be viable destinations. A return to Red Bull as a reserve would have a small humiliation humiliation factor given that he won most of his F1 races for the Milton Keynes-based squad and was once a formidable driver within the team. Daniel Ricciardo on the Mercedes reserve role said his future is not relative to Lewis Hamilton's decision. Ricciardo is without a seat in the F1 2023 driver lineup after being axed by McLaren, and his next step will be a reserve driver role with Mercedes, according to Sky. Hamilton's decision to race on into 2024 and beyond will not impact Ricciardo's decision. The Australian said that his future is not relative to what others do. He further stated that opportunities will arise when they do, but he's not banking on anyone doing something so that he could step in. He wants to take the time that is necessary, keep a little distance from the sport to rebuild himself, and that if something makes sense in 2024, he will come back with a vengeance, have some fun, and hopefully race at the front. Hamilton had previously urged Ricciardo not to accept a reserve role and to continue racing, but the McLaren driver has seen vacancies at Alpine, Haas, and Williams come and go. A reserve role at a major team is seen as a ploy to keep Ricciardo in the mix for a high-profile return to F1 in 2024. Ricciardo denied that he wanted to replace Hamilton, stating that the truth is that he wants him to stay in the sport. He is one of the greatest to ever do it. He further added that competing with him, going wheel to wheel with him, was awesome, and he wishes to do more of that in the future. That's where it currently lies. Ricciardo is currently 12th in the F1 standings with 29 points compared to teammate Lando Norris's 109. He emotionally said, quote, "I don't know how I am continuing," last week after a drab race in the United States. Now ahead of the F1 Mexico City Grand Prix, he reflected, quote, "Fresh off a race, you have not debriefed or assessed anything." He said he knew from early on that it would be a struggle and admitted that he felt helpless in the battle, and that it was normal to feel how he did. Quote, "A few days removed coming into this race, I have a spring in my step and I have another chance to get it right," he concluded. Next up, Mexican GP extended until 2025 F1 season. The Mexican Grand Prix will stay on the Formula One schedule until 2025 after securing a new contract extension. The Mexico City race has become one of the most popular on the calendar, with its final corners snaking through a converted baseball stadium which is always packed full of fans. National hero Sergio Perez's elevation to the front-running Red Bull team has strengthened its place on the schedule. Mexico's new deal will start next year as part of F1's record 24-race calendar. Next year, Mexico will be the second race of a triple header taking place on October 29th between Austin's US Grand Prix and the Brazilian Grand Prix. The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez will host the Mexican Grand Prix this weekend, the 7th at the venue since it returned to the F1 schedule in 2015. With F1's popularity booming, securing a new deal will ease concerns about Mexico dropping off the calendar, although the demand to host a race seems set to continue to grow between now and 2025. F1 boss Stefano Domenicali welcomed the new deal. He stated that he was very pleased to announce that Formula One will continue to race in Mexico for another 3 years under this new agreement. Every year the race attracts a large number of passionate fans, and the atmosphere is incredible, and he highlighted that he is certain everyone will be excited by this news. That concludes today's video. If you found the video helpful, please do consider giving us a thumbs up, and don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.